Good evening, everybody. We'll give everybody another minute or so and get started. Okay, excuse me. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome, everybody. My name is Walter Alcorn. I am the supervisor for the Hunter Mill District of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. And welcome to this virtual February 18th, 2021 Town Hall. So we're going to spend most of this Town Hall taking questions and answers and giving a chance for you to express comments and ask those questions. But before we get to that, I just have a few introductory remarks, and I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy out there tonight. Winter weather is pretty rough. And that also reminds me, I want to give a shout out to the volunteers and the staff at our hypothermia shelters, which we have around the county, including here in Hunter Mill District, and all the service that they are providing so that folks that don't have a warm, safe place to be can be safe tonight. So thank you for everything that you're doing. I also want to give a shout out to Hunter Mill District staff, several of whom are on this call tonight and will be helping on various things. So Lisa and Gwen and Jose and Shamley, thank you very much. And also Amanda and Paul are not on, but folks should know that they are here to help you and help everyone in Hunter Mill in terms of working with the county, interfacing with the county, and addressing needs that need to be addressed. So I'm very grateful to all the public service that you all provide, and thank you for your help tonight. So there's a lot going on. I want to actually just go over, and if Jose, if you could put the newsletter up from yesterday on the screen. We're going to share a screen here. So I thought a good way to start this is, first of all, to brag about the wonderful newsletter, and Lisa spends a lot of time pulling that together. Thank you, Lisa. So I thought what we do is just go through what was in yesterday's newsletter. We're getting these out basically every week. If you're not currently signed up to get on the newsletter, we will put information, I believe, in the chat on how you can do that. And you can email huntermill@fairfaxcounty.gov to get on that list. But for those of you that are, this may look a little familiar, but let's just walk through. So in yesterday's newsletter, we talked about the storm, which is here. And then we have a lot of information, and we may hear questions, comments tonight about the vaccines. So we do have a lot going on with our county health department and the vaccination program that is well underway. We are continuing in Fairfax County to operate the registration system locally. We have not, and we may not ever roll into the statewide registration system. That shouldn't make any difference for anyone here locally, but we continue to have, as do virtually every health department system around the country, we continue to have some challenges with the registration system and communication, but we've come a long way in addressing those locally, and I look forward to continuing to improve the responsiveness and robustness of that registration system. So one of the things that is available, and you can see there's a link in the newsletter to this, there's a vaccine registration status checker. It's highlighted right there. So if you click on that, then I see somebody's put in a name and a first name and a last name there and an email address. But basically, if you put that in and you use the email address that you use to register with the county health department, you will then get a status update confirming the date that you registered and also letting you know what registration date is currently being scheduled for vaccination. So we got a lot of folks that registered the first day that I call it the expanded 1B opened up. That was on January 18th, 2021. So those folks are still being signed up or still being given appointments to get vaccinated. So anyway, that is available, and encourage everybody, if you have registered, to use that. And if you have not registered and you're eligible to be registered, to also go online here and do that. So, and there's additional information there in the newsletter. We seem to be getting fairly regular updates from the health department on the status of the vaccination program and additional means to either get on the list to be vaccinated, and also other things to take into consideration. Basically, being safe, being healthy, wearing masks, practicing social distancing, washing hands, all of those things as well. So there's some additional information there related to COVID, and pointing out some of the long haulers and some of the struggles that many folks out there are suffering as a result of this pandemic. So a lot about the COVID pandemic and the vaccine there in the newsletter. So scrolling down a little bit more, this gets us even more information about the pandemic. We are continuing to include case data, and you can see there are a number of links in the newsletter about vaccine updates, FAQs, and then more information about how the vaccines work. And then going down a little more, there are links to testing, information about testing, and then also we have data dashboards. There are a couple of those, and we seem to be getting more data dashboards, which is, I think, a good thing for those of us that are interested in data. Below that, and this is thanks to Quinn, 100 Mill staff, we have been tracking COVID case data and publishing this now for many months. And we have here, you can see the 7-day trends. This is Fairfax Health Department, also Northern Virginia overall, Virginia, Maryland, and DC. And I tend to focus mostly on the Fairfax Health District numbers. But as you can see, we are still at a fairly high daily case rate, but it has flattened out. We're looking at a 7-day moving average that has actually ticked down just a little bit and is at 277. Hopefully that number with the holiday surges behind us will continue to track down. We're still a long way from having the vaccines distributed widely enough to really affect those numbers, but it is good news that we're seeing, if not a plateauing or leveling off, at least hopefully we are continuing to see some declines in the case numbers. So going down a little bit more, here's an update, something else that you'll see in the newsletter about the town hall tonight. So some of you may have actually gotten to this town hall by going there. And then on down, we have a summer internship program. That's information for college age folks that are interested in doing a summer internship, and it talks about what they would do and links to basically get more information, and then how to submit a letter and resume and other information provided. We did have wonderful summer intern last summer, and we're hoping to do that again this summer as well. So then scrolling down a little bit more news, the Rest and Comprehensive Plan Task Force is continuing its work. We have our next meeting on February 22nd. That's this coming Monday. There are links here about how you can watch that. We're also very much interested in making this as much like in-person meetings as possible. As tonight, there is a way, and I'll explain this in a little bit, that attendees on the WebEx system for these task force meetings can raise their hand electronically and get called on to ask questions or make comments. So we'll be going through that process just a little bit here, and I'll explain that coming up. Also, we have the ongoing Wheelie Avenue Crossing Study Group. That's the group that is looking at various ways to get across Wheelie Avenue from the campus commons development that was approved a little over a year ago. So the question, should it be one of three tunnel configurations? Should it be, I'm sorry, one of three bridge configurations? Should it be a tunnel? Should it be at-grade crossing? Should it be some combination? So that group is getting close to wrapping up, but more information available there in the newsletter. And then also scrolling down, public safety update. Night before last, I did a town meeting with the commanders of the Reston Police District, and had some good questions, great presentations from both the captain and the lieutenant who participated. And as you can see, there are a lot of links to information, general information, and accountability and transparency information regarding Fairfax County's police department as well. So go ahead and scroll on down. Okay, and then here's some information on paying your Fairfax water bill, some information on volunteer income tax assistance and free income tax preparation. And we have Celebrate Parks, Poetry and the Planet with the Parks Poetry Contest. So community news and events like that. And then scrolling down a little bit more, that's our social media links there, and how you can contact us by email or by phone. So again, if you're not getting the newsletter and you have any interest in this, I would encourage you to sign up. We started out talking about doing this maybe once a month. Then the pandemic came, and we pretty much settled into a once a week routine at this point, but very much appreciate the feedback that you might have. And thank you for those of you that read it. Thank you for reading it. So let's go ahead and get to the Q&A part and open up the town hall. So for those of you that are not familiar with WebEx, it's one of a number of these types of platforms used out there. Each one are a little different. And in this case, to raise your hand, here's what you need to do. In the bottom right of your screen, you should see a button for participants. Oh, good. And Jose is going to walk us through this. So if you click on the participants button down here, then go to where Jose is showing the little electronic hand symbol. So click on that to raise your hand. And wow, and we have an experienced hand raiser who's already raised his hand. And we'll get to you in just a sec. But once you raise your hand, then we will go and find you and unmute you. And what we'll do is just go in the order of people that have raised their hands, and very much look forward to hearing from folks, comments, questions. And this is kind of like open mic night for the town hall. So feel free to raise things, and then as we go through each of these items that you raise, some of the things I'll be able to address immediately, and there may be other things that require follow-up. So let's go ahead and get started. Jose, if you could, I see Rick has his hand up. Go ahead and unmute him. Rick, you are on. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Can hear you just great.
As you well know, that's not always the case. So.
I know. That is true. That is true.
Well, thanks for doing this. Yeah, trash collection has been a never-ending source of interesting stories in Polo Fields and perhaps in the rest of the district as well. As you know, we have two trash collection companies, and they act as sort of little monopolies, if you will, because we have no alternative to them. We tried several years ago to change over to a different company. They wanted half of our neighborhood, which is 392 homes, to do that, and we weren't able to make that. So, you know, they're not showing up. I had a little yard trash, oddly enough, not too long ago, when the weather was better, and I looked on their website. We have American. Looked on their website, and it said they were going to pick up lawn trash on our normal day. They didn't. Left it out a second day. They didn't. Tried to get in touch with them on their website. They said, we'll get back to you tomorrow. They never have. So we're kind of stuck. They're just not responsive. And we're kind of stuck because we have no alternatives.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. Yeah, you're not the first person to express similar experiences and concerns. Um, you know, it's interesting. I've been doing stuff with Fairfax County off and on for a long time. And many years ago, when I was much younger, I actually worked for Fairfax County. I worked for the Providence District Supervisor, Kate Hanley, at the time. And solid waste was one of the issues that I helped her with. And back then, this was in the late 80s, I believe there were 32 or 33 different companies registered to haul trash in Fairfax County. And that was great because we actually had a lot more competition back then. There was more, there was a much more active market, and we're down to just a handful, even county-wide. So yeah, it's Rick, it's something we probably do need to look into again. It's not sure when the last time the Board of Supervisors took a look at some of the options. I can tell you one of the things that could be an option. There is actually a county operated solid waste program, but it's not very often that communities have petitioned for that recently after looking into it. And so, it's I can't say that that's the right answer, but Rick, we can. What I'd like to do is maybe have another conversation with you offline, because I know you represent your community there. I've done a lot of work with it, and see if there might be some things we could do at the county level to help.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Rick. Okay, I see some more hands. Next, I see Norm Hall. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Hi, Norm. Oh, you muted back on there. Sorry about that. There we go. Now you're unmuted. Oh.
I've been on too many calls.
I understand.
Sorry. So introduce myself to everybody. I'm a longtime resident of Vienna, and I've done a lot of work in education. I used to be in FCPS doing a number of roles, but a couple of years ago, I became a county employee working for the SAC program. I was a non-merit employee, and then I got merit status because we pushed a little bit harder for more of those, and I appreciate that happened. So that was a little over a year ago. But when the pandemic hit, I no longer was able to work due to my own health sensitivities. And so now I actually have had lateral transfer. So now I'm working for the Department of Transportation. But my question is still about where I came from. During the summer, I spent time with SEIU 512, the labor for government workers. And I'm a board member now of SEIU 512. And in that capacity, I'm still advocating for our childcare workforce. And I'm really concerned about, like, I don't want to get into all the things about schools and SAC centers not being open for that. That's beyond it. But I am concerned about the budget that Brian Hill will release next week and whether we're going to have enough daycare centers open and are we going to have enough staff to support all of the moms and dads who will want their kids to get back into the SAC program. I'm unapologetic. I think we offer the best daycare ever, anywhere for Fairfax County employees, whether it's at the government center, early childcare, whether it's Head Start, or whether it's us in elementary schools. But right now, we only have 47 sites open. In a normal year, we'd have 143. So there's got to be a big ramp up, and I want to make sure. I think the budget and the policy at the federal and at the state level is looking good for getting more daycare. I just got to make sure that we're able to, with our Department of Neighborhood Community Services, have enough, support and management to bring it forward. So I don't know if there's a preview. I may have to wait until next week when Mr. Hill releases the budget. But I'm hoping that we'll have a good opportunity to have a look about how we're going to manage the growth, because I think it's a serious issue. Again, for the workers, definitely, but also for the families and the businesses locally, because there's not that many 100 mil SAC centers open right now. Probably less than half of the total number of schools that have a SAC center are open now. So that's my question.
Well, thank you very much, Norm, for flagging that. As you mentioned, we are going to see the county executive's proposed budget next Tuesday. I don't see it before it comes out. I see it when everyone else sees it. But I'm wondering about a number of things in this year's budget. And thank you for flagging that. I couldn't agree more. You know, this has been such a challenging time for so many parents, and juggling work and having to provide, well, without having the assistance of not just our schools closed or from in person, but also the child care centers also not open on any scale that at least that we're used to. I know it's put a tremendous strain on both workers in those facilities who have not been working and also on families. So Norm, I appreciate that. I'm happy to flag that and let's see what comes out on Tuesday. And Norm, if you have any additional comments afterwards, after the budget comes out, please do contact my office. I'm happy also to put in, if there's something specific there after you see the proposed budget, happy to put a question into the budget process and see if we can flush out some more information or maybe get some movement on there if it doesn't look like it's going in the right direction. So thank you very much, Norm. Next, I see Joel has his hand up. Joel, go ahead and unmute yourself when you can. Hi, Joel. There we go. Joel, it looks like you're unmuted. Let's see. Can't hear anything. So go ahead and try again.
Supervisor, I think he is.
There we go.
Yes, he's going to follow up later.
Okay.
Unless...
All right. Okay. All right, Joel. Yeah, thank you. It looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. All right, Joel, let's come back to you, or maybe another way to get your question or comment in. And thanks everybody again for your patience as we try to do this during a pandemic. I see Lance has his hand up. Lance, go right ahead.
Hi, good evening, Supervisor Alcorn.
Yes, good evening.
Just two questions. One, I don't live in Lake Ann, but I'm a resident of Reston, so I'm just curious if the Board of Supervisor has been involved with the water situation in Lake Ann. And then my other question is, I recently received some material about the upcoming, I guess, Zmod information. So I'm just curious your stance on some of the aspects of that.
All right, thank you for both of those questions. So on Lake Ann, yes, I have been speaking with a number of folks who live at Lake Ann. I've also, including leadership there. I've also been speaking with my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors about the situation at Lake Ann. And I've also been talking with senior county staff. So at this point, you know, it is private in the sense that the infrastructure there is owned by a condo association, the infrastructure that's failing. But as I pointed out to my colleagues, Lake Ann is more than just that. Lake Ann is on the National Register of Historic Places. You know, Lake Ann is what I consider the cultural and historical part of Reston. I think most Restonians would probably agree with me on that. I'm actively looking into different ways that the county can help. So thank you very much, Lance, for asking that. And on Zmod, well, first of all, I am looking forward to seeing what the Planning Commission is going to recommend and what their recommendation on the broad Zmod package will be. But I'm not waiting for that to talk with folks. I had a town meeting on Zmod a few months ago and got some feedback there. Since then, I've actually done a deeper dive with leaders of the Reston Association, really to make sure that the changes as they are proposed for the PRC areas are what makes sense. So that actually has been very helpful. You know, unfortunately, and I guess I sort of knew some of this because I served on the Planning Commission for 16 years, but the reality with Zmod is you really have to get into the details pretty far before you can really understand what is, you know, where some of the decisions are that need to be made. So I'm continuing, and as a matter of fact, you know, I'm looking at different ways that maybe, you know, maybe I'll do another town hall on Zmod before the Board of Supervisors has the public hearing on it. We'll see. I do know there's a lot of concern about, in particular, two provisions in Zmod. One is the accessory living unit proposal, which would change the approval process from going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to an administrative approval process, and then a number of changes and clarifications relating to home-based businesses. So I'm definitely focused on those. I have not come down on any firm conclusion on how I would vote on any of those. Still looking for feedback from folks, but I'm also wanting to make sure that the details and the rest of the update make sense, and that's one of the reasons I've been doing a deep dive with RA. So thank you very much, and anybody who has additional thoughts, comments on Zmod, let me know either tonight or by email or any other way you want to communicate. It's fine. So thank you very much, Lance, for those questions. Joel, I see, has his hand up. Joel, if you want to go. You're on, Joel. But Joel, I don't think we can hear you. Well, let's see. By the way, while we're working on getting Joel unmuted, I should have mentioned right at the top that this is being recorded, and the idea is we will place a recording of this online, so people that couldn't make it, that wanted to watch it or watch any part of it, would be able to go back and do that. Joel, are you unmuted there?
Hi, Supervisor. It's Jose. I'm happy to work with Joel to get his audio situated. Yeah, I can work on that right now.
Okay, thank you, Jose. And Joel will get back to you very shortly. Vanilla Quinn, we see. Let's see there, and go ahead and unmute yourself. And boy, I hope this doesn't become a trend. But
yes.
all right, good.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking my question. Mine is topical. I want to ask about the long-term plan for better options in terms of snow and ice clearing for our walking and biking networks. You know, given that neither VDOT nor the county clear the snow, and that we're reliant on these networks to access the transit network, anyone who is not using a car, well, we have this situation where we have neither legal obligations to get people to clear, but even if we did, because of the nature of the design of our network, most sidewalks and trails that we rely upon do not front on a property, because most of our sidewalks that we need to access the transit or just to get to our destinations are along arterials with nobody fronting on them, with nobody who will ever go do the good deed of, you know, shoveling off the snow. How are we ever going to get to walking and biking networks when it snows? And I just have to say, because we don't clear, they are knocked out for so much longer than the roadway network, because if the temperature doesn't go up and nobody's shoveled, it just gets packed, and they really are treacherous for anyone who needs them, who's relying upon them. So how are we going to get to a long-term place where it goes beyond the take your snow and shovel it request from the county?
That's a great question, and I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's you know, we definitely have. I've had discussion with folks and had several calls about related issues about the maintenance of many of those trails and sidewalks, especially the ones that are not being appropriately maintained. But the snow clearing and the ice clearing is a problem. You know, I totally agree, and it becomes much more of an issue when we're more dependent on those trails and sidewalks for mobility, whether it's getting to a metro station, whether folks that don't have vehicles, and being able to get to work or get to services close by. So thank you for raising that, and I don't have a good answer for you at this point. What I can do is look in to see when the last time we looked into that as a county. I mean, one of the benefits from being still relatively new on the Board of Supervisors, 13 months in, is I can ask these questions because I haven't seen it all and haven't tried everything yet. So, Manula, I'm happy to ask that on your behalf and see what we can do.
Can I add a detail to
please.
it? You know, for last big snow, you know, if you went to the county website, it had the big headline, "Take your snow and shovel it," which really I found to be a very demeaning headline. You know, given that it didn't acknowledge this issue at all, which is that most sidewalks don't front on a property. And even if we all did that, So the county website has improved immeasurably since, you know, the last big snow 6 or 7 years ago, and it's got great info. It still has that on there. It still has that. And I just don't think that's a reasonable thing to say to people in the county when even if we all took our snow and shoveled it, we would not have a walkable, bikeable network or a working transit network. So just that particular phrase that's been said to us when we have nothing else on offer is really not appropriate.
Noted. All right. Thank you. We'll happy to talk with the Office of Public Affairs about that as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Supervisor. It's Jose. Joel was able to submit his question through the chat. I'm happy to ask it right now.
Yeah, please.
So he said, thanks so much for having the town hall. My question relates to the growing problem of food insecurity. As one of the wealthiest counties in the country, hard to believe that people are going hungry in the country. Curious, what is the plan to spend the federal money that has been allocated to the county to address this great need?
That's a great question. And we actually are dealing with multiple concurrent challenges. Food insecurity is right up there. We're also dealing with a lot of folks that are on the edge of being evicted. So home insecurity is another one of the challenges. And then of course we have folks that are also on the hook for utilities. You know, we're really looking at three critical areas that we're working to get assistance to folks that desperately need it: food, rental assistance, and utility assistance. And you know, we have, I think, come a long way. Very early in the pandemic, we activated a network of nonprofits. Certainly here in Hunter Mill District, you know, there's several nonprofits that have established relationships with the county, and much of the CARES Act money, as a matter of fact, about $25 million of CARES Act funds went to those organizations, primarily for rental assistance and food assistance. Those networks continue to provide that support. But one of the things that we realized pretty early in the pandemic is that that really wasn't enough. That our network of organizations that we worked with did reach much of the county, but not every community that needed the help was being reached. So we have expanded the group with which the county works with, and I do have to brag a little bit on, you know, we do have some really good financial managers in Fairfax County government, and so with the CARES Act funding, it had to be spent on pandemic-related things. We've been able to take advantage of additional grant funding coming from the federal government and from the state government that are specific to some of these needs, and then basically reprogram CARES Act funding. So we've really stretched what was originally a $200 million grant from the federal government into, I believe, we're somewhere around $380 million that we are getting in terms of pandemic-related assistance, and food assistance is right up there. We're trying to address the food insecurities. I would just note too that you know, we are seeing more demand. You know, the pandemic has really hit a lot of people the hardest that can least afford it, and we continue to struggle to make sure that folks get the information or get the food that they need. I would also just take this opportunity to plug one of the programs that we in Hunter Mill actively support, the Stuff the Bus program, and we'll put some additional information in the chat on that. But periodically have a transit bus, basically a fast trans bus, parked at different places in the town of Vienna or in Reston in order to accept food donations. And those are distributed to food pantries and then also directly to folks that need it. So thank you for asking that question. And I strongly encourage folks interested in helping out to do so either through a Stop the Bus food drive or any of the numerous food preparation and distribution programs that have emerged out there, including the YMCA. Reston is doing stuff now. There are a number of organizations. So thank you to everybody who's doing that, and thank you for the question. So Jose, that was the question from Joel.
Yeah, I didn't see a follow-up from there. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so next I believe we have Tammy. Tammy Petrine has her hand up. Go right ahead, Tammy.
Thank you, Walter. I'm going to shamelessly lobby you on Zmod.
All right, go for it.
I just want to say I've been aware, alert, and attending every public meeting that Zmod has had since January of 18. And I am astonished at a couple of things. First of all, since COVID has occurred, there has not been one overt change to the code that, is related to it. And that's sort of odd to me. And I think this would come in very much with home-based businesses and ALUs. ALUs changed names. They used to be ADUs, accessory dwelling unit. They changed it to accessory living unit. A group of us asked them, please change it instead to supplemental. So it would be so different from an A that it couldn't be conflated to be the same as affordable. And I fear that people think that an ALU is affordable. I wish it were affordable. I'm not sure it's legal to have rent controls on accessory units in a home, but I wish it were, because we need affordable. Nobody, is chattering about that. The other thing that I want to say is I am just amazed at the procedural, what I view as a procedural error, and that is that the final draft was submitted to the citizens late November, and around Thanksgiving, December 1st, it was advertised by the Board of Supervisors for hearings. Then on January 19th, we get an addendum with over 30 items on it. Then we get a notice that we can have a public hearing extra with the Planning Commission on flagpoles only. And I'm going, wait a minute, what about the other 30 issues that are on that addendum? There is no way to bring forward discussion on that. People who signed up for the extra flagpole hearing were called back by the clerk and told, don't talk about anything but flagpoles. That is the only subject for this supplemental hearing, is flagpoles only. Well, there is a very odd couple of things. One affects Reston directly, and that is putting smoking lounges in PRC village centers. That's either Burke, I don't know if they call their places village centers, but Reston sure does. Cardinal Forest does not. So that's one thing that was interesting, that they allowed that could happen, and there's no discussion. And then the coup de grace is this thing that's got everybody just going crazy. And it is a change that no one can figure out exactly what it means. And it is on page 683, lines 8 and 9, home-based business. And it reads, deleted language from the definition that the business must be conducted by a resident. The use-specific standards specify who may be involved in a home-based business. What does this mean? Does this mean that people can monetize their home? Now, an HBB can be in any home, apartment, townhouse, condo, single family. So does this mean, what does this mean? And we have no opportunity to ask, and so the rest of the people in the county can hear, what does this mean? So I am just ticked, to be frank, that we were limited to flagpoles and not everything in this new amendment that is dated January 19th, signed by Leslie Johnson. So that is not, you're not responsible, but I'm asking if you could please ask why this odd prevention of us talking about anything else. And the flagpoles were in here. There's more, verbiage on flagpoles than there are other more important subjects. There's stuff about signs in here. So I just don't get why we were limited to flagpoles. And I want to know the answer to this question about home-based business. Because if it means that somebody from God knows where can come in and use your home as their business, this was not what the intention was. This intention was to allow people drastically affected run a business out of their home. So, we have to pay attention to what the needs of our community are, but I don't want to get an open sesame here. Thank you.
Tammy, thank you, Tammy. And Tammy, I salute you for getting into the details on Zmod, because, as I said earlier, that's the only way to really figure it out and to understand what the impacts of the proposed changes would be. So, Tammy, I'm happy to look into that. I did hear, I understand this was the issue about the business must be conducted by a resident was something that the Planning Commission also was talking about. So,
well, they probably got it from me, because
I was going to say they may have.
I've been bugging everybody. Get me an answer to this.
All right. Well,
it's important.
I think you were heard. It was good. Yeah. So I will also look for that. Try to get an answer for that. Hopefully by the time it comes to the board for public hearing. So.
And the other person to pay attention to on this Zmod lingo that is very dangerous was in Moira Callahan's testimony before the Planning Commission. And I will see if she can send you specifically what that was, but it was a bunch of word changes that made it really creepy how you could interpret things. It was a change from what it was.
Please do, Tammy. No, that would be very helpful. And this is going to be part of the challenge of trying to pull this all together and make sure that everything that we're doing, frankly, is vetted and makes sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so next, I believe the next person is Lynn Malston. Lynn, your hand is up.
Hi, Walter. Thank you so much for calling on me, and thank you, Jose. I wanted to first thank you for doing the town hall meetings. This is a great opportunity to involve the citizens in the affairs of the Hunter Mill District. So one of the things that I wanted to bring forward is an email that I've received from one resident, but it reflects several neighbors around Hidden Creek and North Shore and the Fannie Mae building. And I'm going to read the questions that were sent to me. So I'm just going to, this individual did attend the Reston Planning and Zoning meeting where Wheelock proposed their 90 townhomes on the Fannie Mae property. So the questions, and there are a couple of them here, but I'm just going to ramble them off and maybe we can get them answered. The first one was an observation that the Reston Planning and Zoning was rightly critical of Wheelock's plan during their committee meeting right before Christmas. The question is, does the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee get to keep commenting? Does Wheelock have to respond to the Reston Planning and Zoning's comments in an iterative process? Additional comment here, many thanks to the RPZ members for serving on this committee. Tammy, when and how do we local residents get to weigh in? And here's a comment about you, Supervisor Alcorn. Supervisor Alcorn said during the Rescue Reston virtual town community meeting after the Happy Hidden Creek decision that he and we have more influence for bigger proposed redevelopment and zoning changes than for smaller ones. This seems like a big change. So the final questions are, what is the process from here on out? And can someone please fill us in? So I would like to be able to fill them in, but it would be great if it came from you or perhaps Planning Commissioner Carter.
Sorry, I was muted that time. Thank you very much, Lynn, for passing along that question. And actually, I'm going to have to ask Jose. Has the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee finished with that application yet? I don't believe they have they?
Good evening. Yeah, I believe it was for discussion in December, like Lynn was correct. And I think they were going to take comments back and come back to the P&Z at a later date. I know that they had submitted an application to the county. That's the only thing I'm aware of. And I can double check right now when the Planning Commission public hearing for that application is scheduled, and I can share that with Lynn and also the residents.
I already know that's scheduled in September.
Okay, good.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Jose, and thank you, Lynn. So,
thank you.
So it's really a multi-step process for applicants who are looking to change their zoning in the Hunter Mill district. So in Reston, there is the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee, which does get a chance to hear applicants' presentations, to ask questions, and to make recommendations, both to the applicant and to Fairfax County. So after the Reston P&Z weighs in, then typically it goes to the Planning Commission, and looks like there's a September Planning Commission public hearing scheduled. And that's John Carter, who is our, I'm biased, but I think wonderful Hunter Mill Planning Commissioner. And then once the Planning Commission, John and the Planning Commission chew on it, and there's a public hearing before the Planning Commission, they make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Then it comes to basically the board where there's another public hearing, and then the Board of Supervisors votes typically to approve or deny the application. So there's still a lot of time, and what I would encourage, this is one of the things that we do in the Hunter Mill office, is Jose talks with folks that have questions about pending rezoning applications and can get them connected to the right people to provide input, to ask questions, to get information about the applications, whether it's at the Reston Planning and Zoning stage. Also, county staff from the Department of Planning and Development is available to answer questions. But I would recommend that anybody who's asking about that case, check with Jose and have Jose be your starting point, because he may have the information you're looking for, and he can definitely provide you with details on how to provide input and how to make your own recommendation on what the applicant is proposing to do.
Thank you so much. I will take that guidance and pass it along.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. And now I see another hand, a new hand. I see Michelle Kimmel. Michelle, go right ahead.
Sure. Hi. So I wanted to thank you very much. At the last Reston task force for the comprehensive plan, you had the county public health department as well as the chief equity officer for Fairfax County come and speak to us. And that was so incredibly important. And I want to thank you for championing these issues throughout our community and ensuring that these are integral parts of just every aspect of how we live, work, and play here. That is just so important, and thank you very much. I wanted to see if perhaps you could shed some light on one issue that seems to have come to the forefront recently from an equity and public health standpoint with the vaccines. I helped some of my neighbors who are over 65 register. They did everything right. They even saw the screen that said, "Thank you for registering." But then turns out a few weeks later, they were told they were not in the system. And it appears this has happened to quite a few people. And initially, they heard from the public health department that this was a known problem and that some data had been lost. And so I'm wondering if you can just shed some light on that, and then perhaps also if there was, if you had any idea as to whether or not there's an equitable solution for both that group that thought they had registered and didn't, or thought they had registered, but their submission for some reason was not processed. But I think it brings up a larger point that a number of people had easy access to register quickly because they were very proficient with technology and have high-speed internet at home, and maybe were working from home and could easily just be at the computer ready to go. But especially with a lot of our population, that's not the case. And so I'm just wondering how the county as a whole is prioritizing equity from a vaccine standpoint, and what we can do better going forward to make sure that we're not leaving behind communities that don't have access to the technology that others do. So thank you.
Well, Michelle, that's a great question. And I would say that overall, I would say our performance along those lines has been fair. I think the strategy for the health department in terms of vaccination order, obviously they're taking guidance from the CDC and the Virginia Department of Health in terms of those categories 1A, 1B, and the governor. But within those categories, when they have opened up, it has been a first come, first serve system, and Michelle, you're exactly right. I mean, for people that are more sophisticated with technology, or maybe have the time or the resources to sit at their computer and to, click, 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 until they get in, which happened on a couple of those days when new groupings opened up for vaccine registration. Yeah, that is a problem. For individuals who registered with the county health department, when the registration system first went up, unfortunately, and I can't remember now how long it was, it may have been a day or maybe 2 days, there was not an efficient or effective confirmation system. That changed. So we did get it fixed so that when folks register now, and this has been this way since I believe at least January 18th, people that register get a confirmation email. They also get if they gave a phone with a text capability, they get a text confirmation, and if they gave a phone number, that takes calls, then they got a voice call, an automated voice call. So folks that did that later would definitely know that they were in. And then, of course, just recently, and this is something Supervisor Faust and I did a board matter on a week ago last Tuesday. Just last Friday, the confirmation system online went live, and that's one of the things I went through earlier on. I guess what I would suggest, Michelle, for the situation that you described for the two folks that registered and it didn't take, have them contact my office, and we can talk through and see if there's anything that we can do, and to see if they did get any sort of confirmation at all, any evidence that they had gotten in. And it sounds like I'm not familiar with the situation that you described, but I know there were several situations where there were either short term, but sometimes affecting hundreds or thousands of people, snafus in the system. So going forward, I think I think we need to do a better job planning for our full spectrum of needs and planning for the full spectrum of capabilities of our population in situations like this. I mean, we knew for months that we were going to get vaccines, but yet we were really scrambling to get a vaccine registration system up and going. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. We didn't know, we thought the state might be doing it. It wasn't clear that this responsibility would fall to the county. There are a lot of reasons why it happened that way, but the reality is we should have been better prepared. And we recovered. We recovered, pretty quickly. And I think, most of the systems are working pretty well now on the registration side. But I think we have to better prepare for that. It really was a very difficult situation because, with folks, with our senior population being the first in line or one of the first in line, and then having them, some of them are, maybe not as well prepared to use the technology, and that was definitely a challenge. I also have concerns about making sure that folks can get to their vaccination appointments. At this point, we have really vaccines being delivered at the Fairfax County Government Center for the first vaccines. I understand we may also be opening up George Mason Arena, Eagle Bank Arena, for that purpose as well. But I am concerned about making sure people have transportation to get there. Not everybody can do that. And as we've seen with this pandemic, many times it is our poor folks, our poor residents, our minorities, and some of the folks with the greatest needs physically, emotionally, and otherwise that are really the most vulnerable and most susceptible to this disease and have been hit the hardest, both from a health perspective and also from an economic perspective. So, yeah, Michelle, I give us an okay grade, but your points are excellent in where we need to do better. So thank you. Okay, I believe I don't see any other hands raised. Do we have any questions in the chat? Perhaps I have not been keeping up with those.
Supervisor Alquist, Lisa, and yes, we do have a question from Jody Bennett in the chat. I can read it for you. It is.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It says, which is first, comp plan or ordinance, Area 3 comp plan in Upper Potomac District in its 103 pages states over and over, single-family residential. Does that mean that according to the comp plan, internal and external, and external ALU are not consistent with the comp plan? I agree with Tammy. We were shut out in discussing anything but flagpoles at the PC hearing.
All right, Jody, thank you for your question. Well, the procedural answer is yes. The comp plan is the overall guide for land use in the county, and the zoning ordinance is structured to support implementation of the comprehensive plan. For your specific question, it sounded like you were asking about external ADUs, and that's one I'm going to have to look into separately. I'm sorry, I think I said ADUs. That's an old habit. ALUs, I guess, is what we're saying now. And if Tammy's suggestion takes on, we would call them SDUs, but right now I guess we'll call them ALUs. Yeah, I'll have to look into that, Jody. The ALU proposal in Zmod is limited to interior, so basically units that would be interior to an existing home, and not exterior. I believe there is a process for doing exterior approvals. Again, that's through the BZA. I don't believe that's being suggested for changes. And if I'm incorrect about any of that, I bet you somebody's going to correct me. But Jody, I'll look into that and can get back to you one way or another. Thank you, Jody, for that question. Other questions in the chat?
Hi, Supervisor.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it's Jose. We got a comment / question on the path sidewalk clearing from Edward R. He says that Nova Parks has committed to plow the WNOD Herndon to Vienna. Reston Association does plow the 50+ miles of Reston trails, but does not sand or salt. Sidewalks are generally a cluster / homeowner duty. Yeah, I think that was. Oh, and then I see another one that he sent before. Can you add a plug for the Reston Association candidate Zoom forum on February 24th for the March-April RA board elections? Thanks. I think we made the plug.
Thank you, Ed, and just plugged.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you very much, Ed, for pointing that out. There's a citizens forum coming up for RA candidates, and Ed, great point on both Nova Parks for the WNOD trail clearing and also RA. I got to tell you, I took special interest this morning when I heard the machine out back of our townhouse, and I paid a lot of attention this time to see it come through and clear out on the trail behind where I live. And yeah, I mean, it cleared some of it out of the way, but there was, you know, it was still covered, and obviously, you know, we got more precipitation later in the day, but that's a good point. I mean, we've got. I think this is something. There's a lot of awareness right now of the need to make sure that we do everything we can to get these trails cleared, and I do appreciate Nova Parks stepping up and RA as well. And that's something I'm happy to, we're going to be looking into that a little bit more. And thank you, Fanoa, for your related question on that as well. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Supervisor Alcorn, we have another question. It's from Julie Blitzer in the chat. I know of people who registered on January 21st after I did on January 18th, and they have gotten called and scheduled for their first shot. So it's not a first come, first shot. My registration has been confirmed in all the ways you have stated. I would be fine if I knew there was a second filter based on age or date of birth.
Well, I can tell you, I have not, that's the first that I've heard of anybody from January 21st getting a call. That's, now I do know that there are some people that have been getting they've received vaccinations through other systems. Kaiser's pretty active with a lot of their patients. And I know, the VA is doing stuff. There are a bunch of different ones. But Julie, let us know. I'd be very interested in that because that's the first I've heard of somebody from past January 18th getting registered. I can tell you that I am registered as of January 22nd. I wanted to wait a few days for everybody else who really wanted to get in, and I'm not 65, but I've had a little coronary artery disease, a triple bypass last July, so they tell me that makes me qualified. So with some encouragement, I went ahead and signed up. I have not gotten my request for an appointment, but Julie, thank you for noting that, because if we're not doing first come, first serve, that is a real concern of mine, and I'm happy to look into it further. All right, thank you, Julie. Okay, other questions, comments? Either raise your hand or go ahead and put it in the chat. Anything more in the chat?
Supervisor Alcorn, Rick Hamilton has a question. I can go ahead and unmute him.
Oh, great. All right, Rick.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Let's see, not two questions. I have one shout out. We have a friend on who lives on Deer Forest Road, and she called, was talking to us one day and was saying that they had a terrible drainage problem off of Deer Forest. And I gave her Jose's name, and that problem was taken care of expeditiously. So big shout out to Jose for his help with that.
Thank you, Rick. I love to hear that. So yeah. Thank you, Jose.
One quick thought on the snow and ice removal question that came up earlier. Snowmageddon, I think we wound up calling that storm. And as you know, we have two through streets in polo fields, and everything else is a cul-de-sac off of those two streets. And during Snowmageddon, and I acknowledge it was a huge storm, the county or whoever was working for the county to clear our streets just made passes down our two through streets and piled up snow that was 10, 11 feet in some places, literally blocking access to the cul-de-sacs. We fortunately had only one person who had a pretty severe ankle injury, but no heart attacks or strokes or anything else, because the emergency crews could never have gotten into any of those cul-de-sacs for a couple of days. And we had neighbors out there, throwing snow, but I mean, that's a lot of snow. And so when you talk to these folks about snow and ice removal, I'd be curious to know, and we also, by the way, they put those GPS trackers on the snow removal vehicles, and we saw a couple online, saw that a couple of those trucks were sitting in our cul-de-sacs for a couple of hours without moving. And we thought that was interesting. So when you talk to them, I'd be curious to know, if we have another such large event, what's their plan for, I mean, they can't possibly be okay to block cul-de-sacs just to keep the through streets open. So anyway, just wanted to build on that question earlier.
Well, Rick, thank you very much for that question. And we can look into that as well. I guess, that's something we're going to need to talk to the Virginia Department of Transportation about.
Right.
Who run those trucks, or hire them. But we are in active communication with VDOT on all that. And I remember not in your neighborhood, Rick. I didn't make it through there during Snowmageddon, but but I do remember that happening in multiple places where some of the streets were cut off, at least for a while. So that's a good question. I don't know what VDOT's plan or what their policy is on that, given snows of a certain size. But I think we can find out.
Thanks. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, and I left off almost the most important part. I cannot remember the man's name who worked for VDOT, but I went to the hearing on Snowmageddon. And he sat there and I asked my question, just as I did here, about these cul-de-sacs. And he said that was, quote, an unintended consequence. And I just about went ballistic. I did manage to stifle myself. But with that kind of attitude at the management level, that's just astonishing. I don't know if he still works there or not. I hope not. But that was his attitude, unintended consequence.
Well, thank you, Rick. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that story, and we'll check and see what VDOT's policy or strategy would be, given another big snowstorm like that. Because yeah, I'm sure for anybody living in that cul-de-sac, in those cul-de-sacs, I'm sure remember that well. Thank you, Rick, very much. Lisa or Jose, I think did I see, did Joni Bennett have another question in the chat?
Yes, yes, Supervisor. I totally missed it. Jody said, I held for almost an hour listening to the message over and over about the COVID program. When I dialed the number of the health department, I was given options to enter 1, 2, 3, etc. It seems that the hold time could be significantly reduced if there were another number such as 4 that would immediately direct the caller with a question regarding registering. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Jody. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I'll talk with Gwen on my staff about that. I don't believe we've heard that suggestion before, but frankly, we are looking at many different ways to improve the efficiency of that process. I will take the opportunity to note, so for folks that need to contact the health department about registration or scheduling appointments by phone, the wait times are still quite long, but here's a hint. Weekends are good, Sundays are the best. So, and I do know for a fact, I talked to somebody who only had to wait about 10 minutes, which, believe me, for this program, that's a short time, but only had to wait 10 minutes on Sunday to get through to somebody to get information about their status and work out some things. So, yes, thank you, Jody, for flagging that, and we'll look into it.
Hi, Supervisor. I have an additional comment from Michelle Kimmel, and then after that I can go to Joel. He sent something through the chat.
Okay.
Michelle would like to add that she is very, very, very thankful for all that you do and staff are doing on health and equity, and she's incredibly excited about working on this from a comprehensive plan perspective.
Well, thank you, Jose, and thank you, Michelle. I got to give a shout out to Michelle, and actually, I believe Tammy was on. I don't know if we have any other task force members, but thank you for spending all the time that you are. Lynn as well. Thank you for spending all the time you've been spending on the comprehensive plan task force for Reston. This is hang in there. It'll be worth it, I promise. So thank you.
Yeah, and Joel sent through the chat, as we ramp up vaccine distribution over the next few months, do we have a sense of where we will be getting vaccinated? I hear about CVS/Walgreens, but imagine that we are thinking about large vaccination sites around the county.
Great question, Joel. And this is something actually that came up. I did a town hall last month with our health department director, Dr. Gloria Adoansu, and that was a specific question that came up, and her answer I found quite interesting. She said that in large measure, to reach people in communities that might be harder to reach, the health department is going to be pushing as more vaccines become available. In the foreseeable future, vaccines will be pushed out to doctors' offices and to pharmacies in general. So, and that was because the issue of equity and equitable access to vaccines came up during that town hall as well. And she said that she basically wanted to move away when more vaccines were available from just doing the large vaccination events, which can be a challenge for accessibility reasons, and move more towards, frankly, how folks get the flu shot. And I look forward to that day. And, hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be able to get enough vaccines coming to Virginia and coming to Fairfax County that they can be distributed that way. One of the things that I would note that I think we learned from the COVID testing challenges early in the pandemic is that it's not enough just to say open the doors at one facility somewhere and say come and get it. Whether it's vaccinations or it's testing. In Fairfax County, we have a very large, very diverse set of communities that really require a lot of thought and planning to reach, particularly in a pandemic. We learned that in testing, and eventually, our testing went to various health clinics and other places in communities that were served by, or that are often used by folks in communities that were suffering the most from COVID, and still are suffering the most. But even that didn't work with testing. We ended up going to more of a mobile testing program, literally to take mobile testing units, drive into communities, and to get people to walk up and get tested wherever there were outbreaks. So I think we got to do something similar on vaccines. We need to, if you will, disaggregate the strategy of mass vaccination and have hundreds of different locations where people can be vaccinated in Fairfax County. And that's when I think it's going to go a long way to reaching all the populations that need it. Thank you for that question. Jose, is there another question in the chat or comment?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think Michelle has a comment if Lisa could unmute her.
Okay.
Or question.
I don't see Michelle's hand up, but maybe you don't have to have your hand up. I actually don't know how that all works. There's her hand up.
There it is.
Michelle, whenever you're unmuted, go right ahead.
Okay, sorry, yes, I did have one other question though. As we're seeing everything that's happening in Texas right now,
Yes.
I'm just wondering if I realize this is a bigger question, but if you could speak to our area's level of preparedness to handle severe climate change related issues like we're seeing in Texas.
Wow, that's another great question. Well, in terms of our electrical grid, and again, this is really secondhand. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but for our area, the grid is pretty good. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be modernized. It doesn't mean that we have a lot of waste of electricity that you know, it's being spent. Our system of at least the electrical system and the grid is pretty good. I don't anticipate us having a problem like they experienced in Texas happen here. But of course, that was, you know, the variations in weather patterns, unexpected, there could very well happen here. I would actually expect, and it's just kind of the way I think about things, but I would expect a different type of disaster, climate related, to occur in our area. You know, something more, I mean, it's like the biblical plagues, right? I mean, but something more, you know, maybe on the flood side and the water side might be more likely to happen here than extreme cold, although it could happen here as well. You know, the whole movement towards resilience that anticipates and mitigates ahead of time the impacts of climate change is gaining momentum. And I think, you know, I think we can and need to learn from others who have experienced, you know, even if we're not going to see, hopefully, anything like what happened in Texas, there are other things that we are likely to see weather extremes here that we've not seen before. And we should just plan for that. And that should be built into our infrastructure and our emergency planning. So thank you for that question, Sean. Okay, just checking any more questions, anything else in the chat? I don't see any other new hands up.
Tammy has her hand up.
Oh, hi, Tammy. Okay, yeah, go right ahead, Tammy.
Thank you. And related to that, Walter, Reston is a biophilic community, and we are trying our darndest to be aware of climate change and combat it. However, the polar opposite is true of the continuous approvals of plans coming through the Board of Supervisors. And I know that you are hyper alert to environment, but that is not the how do I say this? People give lip service to climate change, but when it comes to development and approving plans that are disastrous, whether it's impinging on water, Zmod is huge on this. This is one of the things about septic and Zmod and ALUs and HBBs being allowed in areas that influence watersheds, particularly the Occoquan. And, you know, 60% of that water goes to Fairfax, but 40% goes to Prince William people. This is a huge regional, just very important environmental feature that we have that is not being paid attention to whatsoever. We've got roads coming through. We've got roads proposed that influence that watershed. We're not even getting any traction on having any input into the Prince William Route 28 bypass deal. So, you know, this is lip service that the board is going to. I think the new people on the board have the best of intentions. You came in within a couple weeks, COVID hit you in the eyes. You're already drinking from a fire hose, trying to absorb all the procedures and regulations of being a supervisor. But this is so critical, and we're not getting the importance that it needs to have county-wide, each and every plan. And I guess this is part of the frustration of activists who have now banded together across the county to try to get that message through. And you know, we would appreciate if you would carry that banner for us, because you get it. You are one of the few who do get it. And we so appreciate you. I mean, I'm sorry, you should have like 4 vaccines already. You know, we can't afford to lose you, and your staff should be totally vaccinated. They are fabulous. Their service to us is exemplary. But I just want to put that plug in for climate change. This is absolutely the most important priority any of us should have. If we don't have a place to live, what's the deal? And we can't keep paying for these cataclysmic climate weather events. We just can't afford it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tammy. Appreciate your comments and your questions there. The couple of thoughts. First of all, on basically in Reston and the type of development that we want to see, and making sure that it's we call it climate friendly to the max. Tammy, we've got coming up in the task force, one of the topic items is that and green building, and I really hope that the task force will do its diligence, just like it's been doing for the last several months, and with your leadership and input, will make sure that we have the right language in the comprehensive plan, so that the plans we get are hopefully climate neutral, if not a climate positive plan. And I think that's something locally in Reston, at least. I think we have the ability to make some improvements in the near future. And thank you for bringing up some of the things going on in other parts of the county. I feel older all the time, but I'm not quite old enough to remember the Occoquan downzoning. But I did show up not too long after that, and I remember how critical that battle was for Fairfax County's environment. Overall, there were some very hard decisions made, and with a lot of pushback at the time, to basically keep sewer out of the Occoquan watershed and keep development in that area down to very low levels. So, yeah, I remember at least the wake of those battles, and it does make me, I think, gives me a little bit of a special appreciation that when we look at changes to the zoning ordinance, I want to make sure we're not undercutting our water quality goals whenever we're making these overhauls. So thank you for flagging that, Tammy. That's certainly one of the things I'll be looking at when Zmod comes to the Board of Supervisors for to vote on. So thank you again. Lisa or Jose, any more questions or comments out there?
Yes, Supervisor. We had an additional question from Fanula. She has her hand raised.
Okay, Fanula.
Yes, thank you. Just following up on my previous points, because there were a couple of contributions. One about, pointing out that we do have snow clearing on the Nova and RA trails, and also some discussion about Snowmageddon. I want to make clear, it's a whole network, and even when we're very lucky in this corner of the county that we do have those 2 agencies who are providing those services, but the network is still knocked out in terms of accessing transit and stuff like that, because of the remainder of the system, particularly the arterial part. So it's like our car network is complete after snow removal, but our walking network is completely broken up. And while there was discussion about Snowmageddon, every single snow is Snowmageddon for the walking network. It only takes an inch and a low temperature for that sidewalk to be out for in a very extended period. And, you know, we talk about the last mile, but in terms of walking, like it's the last 10 yards, you just can't get there. So it's a very different scale. But, you know, some of our suburban neighbors have made some attempts at this very issue. And, you know, obviously we've this vast networks of sidewalks. And, you know, I've mentioned transit, and really transit may be part of the clue, which is priority walking routes, you know, clearing the segments that are of highest priority, that are directly adjacent. And the clue may be in the fact that we're very lucky that we have these two other entities who are snow clearing. So it gives us in Reston the opportunity to be a pilot for the region, because we're so unusual up here in that we do already have some clearing going on by some other people. But if you look at some of our suburban neighbors, you know, they will pick the spots that provide the vital connections in the walking network. But right now we have just nothing. That's really the problem.
That's a great point, Fanola. You know, we've prioritized walking routes for other purposes. You know, the safe routes to school, for example. I mean, but you're right. I'm not aware of any sort of prioritization in terms of snow and ice removal from trails and sidewalks. That's an excellent suggestion, and maybe that's a good place to start the discussion. Because as you note, I mean, this is a big problem. This covers. There's a lot of we have many miles of trails and sidewalks here that are not being cleared. And thank goodness we have some that are. Thank you, RA. Thank you, Nova Parks. But certainly a prioritization system with something I would like to look into. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Last call on questions for the evening or comments. Okay.
Hi, Supervisor. Just
kind. Well, thank you, Lynn. Well, and thank you to everybody who participated tonight. I want to especially thank the folks that basically shared their insights and in some cases their expertise and the results of their diligence. This is you know, this is what local government's all about. And you know, we heard a number of questions tonight from folks and other issues relating to trails and sidewalks. You know, one thing that I should note before signing off here, you know, certainly the snow clearing and the ice clearing is important, and it's one of the things that, let's don't forget, it's important so that people are safe. And you know, another priority of mine, which didn't bring up this time, is pedestrian and bicycle safety in normal times, or at least, you know, when it's not snowing and icing. And that is something that that we are looking at quite diligently in Fairfax County through the active Fairfax replanning process, looking at our bicycle trail, our trails map, and pedestrian routes. We're looking at all of that, and we will also, in the near future, be looking at a policy on lighting and how that relates to safety, both in terms of preventing accidents, but also personal safety. So we're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming months and years on lighting and safety as well. So anyway, with that, I will let everybody take 21 minutes back from this evening. I want to thank everyone for participating tonight, for asking your questions, for showing up, and also thank you to the Hunter Mill staff for putting this on and for everything that you do every day. So with that, I'll just say, everyone stay safe out there, stay healthy, and good night.